Hi everybody, today we are going to talk about diapers. We're going to talk about cloth versus disposable. We've run some numbers on just kind of the economics of cloth versus disposable, and I wanted to, I wanted to share them with you. So stay tuned and we'll roll that next. Okay, so before we jump into the economics and the number crunching, I wanted to do a little bit of history with you guys. It was kind of interesting as we prepared for this video. We did some research and looked around online and found some pretty interesting stuff. So obviously diapers have been around since babies started showing up on this planet. I'm sure they've probably changed shape and form a little bit, but I'm sure as long as there's been babies, there's been something to wrap around their little tushies. And before the introduction of washing machines, mamas were either hand washing these things or hand washing. So imagine you don't have the washing machine and you're scrubbing this and rubbing it, and that doesn't sound like a lot of fun for me. So that brings me to the next point in the history of diapers. Is there's incentive to get your baby out of diapers ASAP, because ain't nobody got it time for that. That's part of why cloth diapering works for us, is because I have a washing machine and I don't have to spend a lot of time running this through the water and scrubbing it and hand washing. So there's incentive to get babies out of diapers ASAP. And honestly, there's a lot of other cultures that potty train a lot sooner than we do. And there's also something which I know very little about, so I'm not going to talk about it very much at all, but it's elimination communication. And basically you're starting at the very beginning of baby's life and you're picking up on subtle cues about when baby needs to go potty, and you're just training them from baby on that when they go potty, they go to a toilet. Culturally, we might be a little bit on the later end of potty training. As we were looking through the numbers, we found that in the United States, potty training ages have gotten older and older and older. In the 50s, for example, children were potty training, I'd say 95%, I believe is what we found, by 18 months. 95% of 18-month-old kids, like my dad, was potty trained by 18 months. Again, mom got tired of washing diapers, and so it was a parent-led potty training thing instead of child-led, which I believe is kind of the direction that we've gone these days. So in the 1980s, obviously, at this point, we've had the introduction of disposable diapers. So there's a decrease in cloth use. Probably still about 50% were using cloth. And those 50% had the luxury of having a washer and dryer. However, disposables, let's be honest, they're disposable. They're a little bit easier. I mean, you wrap them up and throw them away. So there was the decrease in cloth diaper users, and there was an increase in disposable. So the potty training age actually went up. There's probably only about 50% of kids, as opposed to 90% of kids, 95% of kids by 18 months. And now, I would say that there's 10% or fewer that are doing cloth, although I think that cloth is kind of making a little bit of a comeback, which is awesome. But only 10% are potty trained by 18 months. Why is that? Well, because I don't have to hand wash these every single night to prepare for baby for the next morning, on top of all the other things that I would have to be doing as a 1930s, 1940s, 1950s housewife. There would be a lot of other things going on. So disposable diapers have kind of helped us push the potty training age up to a little bit older. No, I'm not saying that's wrong. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. However, it's just kind of interesting when you look back that there are pediatricians and there are doctors who say, oh no, children shouldn't, they're not ready to potty train before a certain age. And that may be true for some kids, but it kind of makes me wonder about, what about those kids in the 1950s? They did it. I mean, it's 95% were potty trained by 18 months. So it's possible. I think that it's just become a lot easier to wait until kids are ready versus, getting on them and doing the parent-led potty training. Alright guys, so here is the amazing spreadsheet that my dad helped put together. So let's start right off. This is basically the economics of cloth versus disposable diapers. Now we're working on some averages. We're not claiming that this is 100% perfect, but let's start up right here with assumptions. So we have a high end and a low end, and we're going to start off with average changes per day. High, 10 changes, low, 6 changes. Now this is going to be stretched over for the duration of 36 months, which is also on the high end, but we also have 18 months on the low end. So if you're thinking, well, my newborn's going to pee more than 10 times a day, well, you might be right, but it's also an average stretched out over 36 months. So we kind of figure that your number of changes required right here are going to fall somewhere between 10,800 and 3,240. Regardless of whether or not this number is accurate for a newborn. So we're working on averages. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start with here is disposable diapers. Average cost, high end, 30 cents per diaper, to low end, 12 cents per diaper. And then we're going to say total cost of disposables, 1 child and 2 children. So we've got the numbers here. So high price for 1 kid, low price for 1 kid, and then 2 kids, high and low. So that's what we've got for the total cost for disposables. $6,480 as a high cost, and low cost $778. All right, moving down to cloth diapers. Equipment and supplies. So we've got newborn diapers, small diapers, medium diapers, and large diapers. Now you'll see that there's and we're talking about pre-folds because that's what I have experience with. So obviously you're going to see on the low end, there's going to be some mamas like me who are going to say, okay, I'm going to go with small diapers and large diapers because the medium, we'll meet somewhere in between. And that's cool. So we've tried to show that there's going to be some variations in what size of diapers you choose. Diaper sprayer and shield, awesome, make sure you get this. Wet diaper pail, diaper liners, fasteners. So subtotal for 1 kiddo, high end is $568, low end is $385. And then we've got replacement supplies. So for example, when our second came along, there were a few things that I needed to replace. And so we've got high end of replacement cost $170 to the low end of $39. And we're assuming a 30% and a 10% replacement cost. So our second subtotal, if you're diapering for 2 kids, $738 and $424. Now we also need to remember that there's laundry cost. So we've got diapers per load, number of loads, laundry cost per load, and then we have our subtotal for 1 child and for 2 children. And we're assuming that the same laundry costs for each child. We're not going to go into different costs. So we've got number of loads and numbers of diapers that you're going to be doing in each load. Then we'll move down here to total cost of cloth times 1 child and total times 2 children. So high end for 2 kids, $1,746 and $527. And here's the money right here. Comparison of cloth to disposable diapers. 1 kiddo, disposable diapers. On the high end, we've got $3,240, low end $389. Cloth diapers, high end $1,072, low end $437. So basically, savings with cloth on the high end, you've got $2,168 of savings right there. And on the low end, minus 48. Now let's move to 2 kids, which is where I'm at. Disposables, high end $6,480, and high end for cloth $1,746. So savings with cloth on the high end is going to be $47.34, and then savings on the low end will be $250. So somewhere probably in the middle is where you're going to find your savings with 2 kids. Now obviously I've got 2 kids, and so this part right here with the 2 children is what's super exciting for me. So those are the numbers. That's the spreadsheet that we put together, and that actually my dad mostly put that together. Yay, Dad! Lots of good information, but there's more than just numbers. And I wanted to kind of go over a few more things with you guys. obviously, disposable diapers create more solid waste. In fact, about 7 times more. However, cloth diapering also has an environmental footprint, and it largely depends on how we, as cloth diaper users, how we wash them and how we handle them, as far as what kind of footprint we're leaving. So some of the suggestions that we've found and that I use, not all of these, but some of these are suggestions as far as how to kind of minimize your footprint. And so obviously one of them is going to be line dry when possible. I live in a place in the summertime where it is like living on the sun. And so in the summertime, awesome, line dry. And the other thing is the sun helps bleach them out and keep them smelling wonderful, and any little bugs that might have been missed, awesome. So line dry when possible. And then use your dryer as little as possible. Now obviously in the winter time where we're at, it's rainy and junky, so I'm going to put them in the dryer. But if you have the option to not use your dryer, then don't. Line dry would be awesome. Use HE equipment if possible. So you want to do the high efficiency if you can. That's just one small way that's kind of going to help kind of keep that footprint light. Again, now obviously if you don't have HE stuff, that's okay. But if you do, great. That's minimizing it just a little bit more. And here's another suggestion that we found, and to be perfectly honest, I don't know what my water temperature is set at, but one of the suggestions was not to wash your diapers over 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 Celsius, and that's going to kind of help, obviously, with water temperatures and bills and all that stuff. Use fuller loads, so if you can, and in fact, I have quite a few cloth diapers. I've got a lot of these, and so I can afford to go for 3 days and get a really nice full load, and as long as I do laundry that day, I'll be good because I'll have a little bit left for the next day, but I'll have a nice full load, which is awesome. Then another thing obviously is help your child potty train as soon as possible. And I've read in places that cloth diapering actually kind of helps kids move towards potty training a little bit earlier. Although, in my first daughter, she was kind of making moves towards potty training, but then, I don't know, she backed off a little bit. So I was like, okay, whatever. And I think the reason for that is with disposable diapers, it wicks away the moisture and you don't actually feel wet. With with cloth, obviously you feel the dampness. So if you're sitting in a really wet cloth diaper, it's wet and you can feel it. And so that might help some children potty train a little bit earlier. Lastly, reuse them. These right here, this has already been through one kid and now it's going through the second kid. And that just helps as you saw the numbers, that just helps as far as the amount of money that you're going to be spending in your overall footprint. But having said all of that, I definitely want to put this out there. It's not just the numbers, and it's not just the money, and it's not just the environmental concerns, because to be perfectly honest, I'm on about month 3 of mostly using disposables. We've got some things going on in our life right now that make it to where doing extra laundry and a lot more cloth diapers just isn't feasible. So we've been using a lot of disposables, and here in another month or 2, I'm probably going to go back to doing cloth when things have kind of settled down a little bit. So having said that, obviously there's no judgment on whatever way you choose to diaper. I mostly just wanted to put the numbers out there and show you what we've found. I like our compromise. I'm happy with it. We have disposables, we have cloth, and when I use the cloth, I feel great about it because I can just wash them and it's wonderful. And when I use disposables, I feel great about it because it's quick and I have another option. So either way, whatever works for you, your family, your finances, your time, because you got to factor all those things in before you make a decision as far as like putting the money down for cloth diapering. So that's it. That is our video on the diaper wars. Cloth versus disposable. Which one will you choose? Or both, in my case. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I would love to be able to help you if I can. obviously not a pro, but yeah. And if you like our video, click like. We'd also love to have you join us as a subscriber. We've got quite a few videos going on now about this awesome journey we call parenthood. And yeah, we'd love to have you join with us. We have a Facebook page, it's the KT Files, and we also have a blog, familylifeandlove.org. We'd love to have you check us out on either one of those. And yeah, hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Best wishes as far as your decision on cloth versus diaper. Take care, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.